Do you ever miss the 90s? It might be the last time the youth of America seemed really dangerous to the powers that be. Our angry anti-authority music, our wrestling, we were more chains than a dominatrix. We were all soul skaters on our skateboards, freaking out parents and politicians alike. We'd all say, "It's the 90s," as we drew that stupid cool S on all of our notebooks, as we wore Janko jeans so big that they were the size for kangaroos, basically. Nothing is more of an example of this than Mortal Kombat, full of deliciously over-the-top blood and fatalities that would make Freddy Krueger himself blush. Our parents couldn't help but wonder, are we raising future IT workers that'll have ponytails? Or are we raising the future serial killers of America? And I don't know, maybe it's the new Mortal Kombat movie coming out or my age getting up there, but my nostalgia veins have been pumping, so I've been looking for a game to challenge Mortal Kombat, but with its cool, then dated now 2D posing as 3D graphics. And I think I found the game. It's right here. I'm going to plug it in, and we're going to give it a go.
Hudson Frohawk. Hawk Hudson. Future me from the Time Cop episode. Hawk Pliskin. With the character death counting captain.
What's this crap? Well, so what do you think with these guys in it? Remember when Dana White was all like, "Hey, I'm gonna buy an island and have my fighting UFC pay-per-views there"? Yeah, well, all of us 90s kids, we've been there, done that, with all of our leftover lunch quarters on those Mortal Kombat arcade machines. At least when our moms weren't looking and they thought we were on NBA Jam still. Yeah, the popularity of all these video games at the time, man, led of course to several terrible video game to film adaptations that opened to mostly abysmal box office about every other week. I mean, Super Mario Brothers, with Dennis Hopper all hopped up on cocaine, it did so poorly that Nintendo was like, yeah, we're not gonna license anything to Hollywood pretty much ever again. But the one of these that might be the best of this 90s funky bunch was Paul Anderson's Mortal Kombat. And I mean Paul Anderson with a WS in the middle of his two names. Not a T. We're not talking There Will Be Blood and Boogie Nights here in HawkSchlock. We're talking Event Horizon, Soldier, and 74 glorious Resident Evil flicks. God bless Paul W.S. Anderson, patron saint of the video game to film adaptations. So we open up this flick with some all jacked up on Surge opening titles. Just listen to that theme song. It's like an audio aphrodisiac. We then move to some glorious temple set where the sky's been taken over by an Atari Jaguar, 64-bit Tempest 2000 graphics, as our supervillain himself, Shao Tsung, is in the middle of killing someone in a fight. The person killed is 90s 2D video game Bruce Lee himself, Liu Kang's brother. Now, Liu Kang is played by Robin Chow, probably best known as Chris Farley's sidekick in Beverly Hills Ninja, and he's actually been involved with both Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter adaptations, but here in this flick he's just super pissed that his bro's brain has been bashed. You can say that 5 times fast, and you can cut the angry tension with a hard cut right into some 90s club that's set somewhere between a Tony Scott and a Wachowski siblings flick. We got a butt-kicking blonde chick who's so hot, wanna touch the Heidi. That's right, we got Bridget Wilson herself here of Billy Madison fame, and she's Sonya Blade, and she's going up against this type of scumbag who's got a British accent somewhere between the British Bulldog and Sling Bladed Kano himself, armed with some makeup that isn't exactly Rick Baker worthy. It's more like he's got some tinfoil on the side of his face with a red patch underneath. Cue the eye twitch as he's told what to do by his supervillain superior, Shao Tsung again. Now Sonya's after Kano because he apparently killed some partner of hers, and in some pure hypocritical policing, she's willing to kill to find out where he is. "Where's Kano? Tell me," she yells at the dying thug. Yeah, maybe you should have had him tell you before you killed him, lady. So dumb. Still want to touch the hiney? You can cut her anger with a film clapper of Steven Fakeberg. Literally Spielberg, who's always been a video game nut, and he loved the Mortal Kombat games. He was actually going to do a cameo here. Now, the story's always been that there were scheduling conflicts, or maybe Spielberg just read the script, But either way, they're going with Walmart brand Steven Fakeberg. And he's directing 90s American Costco brand Jean-Claude Van Damme himself, Johnny Cage. Now, Van Damme the man actually turned down the role of Johnny Cage, by the way, to do a little film called Street Fighter. You know, that video game flick where the Buns from Brussels was doing about $10,000 a week of that precious Snow White powder, all the while schlonking his co-star Kylie Minogue. This is the type of life decision I would make fun of, but then again, this was the 90s and there was definitely worse ways to spend them, like following the Dave Matthews Band on tour. Now Johnny Cage he's angry about the fact that all these critics and fans of his movies, they don't consider him a real martial artist. They just consider it movie fakery. So Johnny Cage needs a way to prove himself for real, and there to offer him that way is Walmart brand Chris Christopherson. Now in truth, it's just supervillain Shao Tsung himself. He's morphed into the Walmart brand Christopherson, and he's manipulating Johnny into this tournament. Video game adaptation screenwriting 101. So now we have our three heroes who all have these conflicts with Shao Tsung in common. Gee, I wonder if this is going to bring the three of them together. Say on an island leased to the bad guys by Dana White, we got Highlander himself, Christopher Lambert. He's here with sort of crossed eyes. He's Raiden. Now, if you haven't played the video games, Raiden was designed by someone who watched Big Trouble in Little China maybe 5 or 6 or 97 times. And Christopher Lambert here is armed with a Walmart brand Christoph Waltz accent, with an Oscar the Grouch laugh, crossed eyes, lightning powers, and a horrible wig. And I'm not even talking about like a Spirit Halloween wig. I'm talking about like one of those Walmart cheapo wigs, you know, that you find that is overpriced even at $5.99. Now, have you ever been on a boat in the middle of a fog machine? Well, these actors have. It's totally not a set. We're on a boat that is definitely made better than the Titanic 2 was, if you watched that review I did recently. Now, Raiden explains some rules that he also later explains aren't all the rules, but he lets us know with his ridiculous accent, the fate of billions rests with you three. But hold the landline phones a minute, because, you know, 90s mobile phones are not getting service on this foggy set. But we also got Subzero and Scorpion here, enemies in the video game, but here they're teamed up. Holy crap, 10-year-old me just peed his pants in excitement. Sonya Blade knows what I'm talking about, because she used to teach 3rd grade. Now Sub-Zero, he's frosting someone's gun, and with those glorious 90s CGI effects, it makes the similar shot that's used in the new Mortal Kombat look like garbage, or is it the other way around? But holy crap, now there's no more fighting until the island, because someone has just hooked up the Sega CD projector composite and put into the sky, and by sky I mean set, and just like a presidential debate, it has begun! Anyhow, we've now made it to the island Shao Tsung has leased from Dana White in the UFC, and Johnny Cage has more luggage than the princess from Spaceballs and Daphne from Scooby-Doo combined, and before Johnny can say, "Hey, I'm a Hollywood prince!" his luggage is getting dropped more times than that cell phone service did in the 90s, and it's also getting dropped down for good, down some temple stairs via some gloriously horrible 90s CGI. It's sort of like Ace Ventura, you know, using the slinky on the stairs in the second film if his slinky was designed in a 3DO. So we're at this island, which is full of the best, worst competition in all of video game adaptation land. We got Skeletor here, apparently. We also got a Ninja Turtle ooze creature who's bringing Goro to life. Not to mention we got Princess Katana herself, a hot babe who here is cosplaying as a fancy island getaway drink, complete with human umbrella. This is when our heroes find out that they're here to compete in literal Mortal Kombat, hence the title. Now, at first, all the fights are against Mortal Kombat jobbers. Now, if you're not a wrestling fan, a jobber is a local talent who's just there to get the crap kicked out of him by the big names. So, of course, here in Mortal Kombat land, that means in lieu of a tombstone from The Undertaker, we're getting Sub-Zero freezing and shattering jobbers into a million CGI pieces, much like that girl with brown hair I had a crush on sophomore year did to my heart. The heroes search around. We can't help it. It's a guy thing, one of our guy heroes say to Sonya. And they don't mean helping her, by the way. They just mean that they both want to follow her around like lost puppies because they want to schlonk her like Jean-Claude and Kylie did on Street Fighter's set. Now, hey, remember in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom how he leaves as quiet as possible and he still gets caught? Now, our heroes here try the exact opposite approach. They see how many rocks and pebbles they can make noise with as they leave. This all leads into Mortal Kombat theme usage. Number 2, have a drink, have a dance, and get all jacked up as our good guys are beating up some jobbers. Anyhow, 90s Walgreens brand Booker T shows up to, you know, get killed immediately by our heroes. And well, then it's time to give me a break. Literally, no Kit Kat bar fatality required. Oh, and now we got some 90s warp effects. They're taking us from trees to sets made from cut-up trees as we go from this beautiful location, a Hollywood set. But then we get to hear Scorpion say, "Get over here!" And I remember seeing this as a 10-year-old. It was like Kelly Kapowski had just agreed to give me a lap dance at the max. Now, Scorpion, by the way, is played by a stunt ninja who impressed the crew so much that he got a bigger gig. Only if we could get a Best Stunts category at the Academy Awards, man. Now, Scorpion rips off his own head like that Marilyn Manson 90s rumor come to life. He spits out literal fire and Johnny Cage uses a shield to cut his skull in half. Scorpion, of course, explodes, and Johnny Cage leaves a signed headshot to his biggest fan, like your friendly neighborhood action movie star. I mean, this sequence really needs to be seen to be believed. Now, obviously, Sub-Zero just got his set call from his trailer as he descends from the fog machine and gulf stairs like an angel of frozen death. He even does a Sub-Zero temperature version of the DX Suck It crotch chop, beating Sean and Hunter to the crotch chop punch, by the way, by about 2 years. But someone call the water boy, because we're about to have some high quality H2O. We're flipping water temps like the gravity getting flipped in Kong vs. Zilla, and somebody quote Mr. Freeze from Batman and Robin because Sub-Zero is like a dinosaur killed by the Ice Age. Now Goro is called in here like the studio scumbag calls in Zeus in No Holds Barred. We have a ridiculous montage of bodies just getting tossed one after the other as Goro is going through victims quicker than a scan through a Wikipedia list of celebrities who've been Me Too'd. Finish him! Oh, those wonderful words were finally getting spoken here. Cue an overly long crane shot that they spent about a quarter of the budget on. Now let's not forget about Raiden. He shows up every once in a while to explain how the rules he already explained are not really being broken, but there's always an asterisk to the rules, so he can't do anything about it. He also, of course, takes time to whisper sweet nothings in his accent like, "Those pesky humans." Anyhow, Sonya Blade, she's revving up some sexual tension with John Boy, who wants to fight Goro. "Don't you dare, Johnny Cage," she chastises him. Sonya goes on, "You're the most pig-headed, stubborn, most egotistical man I've ever met, Johnny Cage." He replies, "Yeah, well, you forgot good-looking. Actor mode unlocked, and you can cut the sexual tension with..." Johnny Cage going full Nutcracker suite on Goro. He's obviously worked in some off-Broadway plays. Anyhow, Raiden once again is all like, "Hey, the rules have changed." Now, that means our heroes are going to go through a Sega CD version of some T-1000 morph effects as they're going to Bowser's Castle. Hey kids, Reptile's here. He is voiced by an uncredited legend, Frank Welker. Now, some stuff translates from video games to movies pretty well. Like, for instance, you remember that move where Liu Kang leaps in the air and he does like 25 kicks in one go around from like the left to the right screen, you know? Yeah, well, that happens here and it doesn't translate so well, which means it's awesome. And then Liu stomps on Reptile's guts. He doesn't even have the courtesy to ask, do you have it? Then we have an effects shot zoom into Bowser's Castle, up the tower and inside to Billy Madison's girlfriend, who's been changed into a short-skirted damsel in distress look. It's all part of a shot whose goal is seemingly to make the effects in Escape from LA look like Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring. Now her friends show up and John Boy Cage unties Sonya and ask her, "Hey, should we save the cuffs for later?" I guess Johnny Cage hasn't seen Promising Young Woman yet. Meanwhile, Liu Kang derobes, dropping panties in the 90s movie theaters quicker than a Leo DiCaprio flick, and we finally have our third Mortal Kombat theme song usage. Take a drink, have a dance, get jacked, because we're getting ready for our final battle in front of a giant Mortal Kombat logo in the floor. Now it's combo time, and I don't mean those bags of pretzels. I'm talking down, right, A, B, left, flawless victory. As the sorcerer himself gets impaled on a bunch of spikes like a cheerleading captain at a frat party. All the sorcerer's souls he stole, they're just being freed, including, of course, Liu's brother. He's heading off with Patrick Swayze into a bright light of the spirit afterlife world. And then our surviving men fighters look at the surviving women fighters and are like, "Hey, let's go do another physical tournament with some more pounding." But then they see Raiden shows up to block that kind of action. And then, of course, we get a fourth and final round of the Mortal Kombat theme. It's kicking in as we get a tease of a sequel where our good guys will fight Shao Kahn. Now, this all came to be in the sequel, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, which might even be too awful for HawkSchlock standards. Please, who am I kidding? I reviewed Driven. But that righteous theme song is jamming through our speakers as the end credits roll. Talk about a way to send you out of the theater all jacked up and ready to fight your dad. And it's Schlocker time. We have dual Oscars for Best Worst Accent and Best Worst Big Trouble in Little China ripoff for Raiden himself. Suck it, Christoph Waltz, and your 2 Oscars. We have Best Video Game Adaptation of the 90s, and I know that's saying so much. Best Theme Song to get all jacked up and arrested after techno dancing your way into a 7-Eleven, stealing a bunch of boxes of lottery tickets, only to find out that they're actually Kit Kat bars because you were on a surge, sugar high. Best Worst PG-13 Fatalities. You know, if the video game was like this on the Super NES, my mom totally would have no issues with playing this game, and I wouldn't be in need of a therapist. Best Worst Cool as Ice 90s CGI. Suck it, Vanilla Ice. Best Who Needs a Plot Tournament Fight Storyline. Anyhow, on my Winona Ryder's face is a walking emoji generator scale of Schlock cinema. Mortal Kombat 1995 gets 3 Winonas. You know, this flick is exactly what it's supposed to be, and it's certainly not the dumpster fire that Annihilation was a couple years later. But between that and its righteous soundtrack, this one is coming. Highly recommended.
Secret Code by Russell Walls. Psh, Russell wins. What?
HawkSchlock,